The White Sox almost won a series on the road, which is rare, and they almost looked better than the Miami Marlins, but the bullpen blew two leads, and Michael Kopech served up a walk-off home run to former fan favorite Jake Berger. So let's discuss the interesting ways the Sox found to lose this weekend, along with the time to get rid of Michael Kopech next. Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also, follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Now, the White Sox should have swept the Miami Marlins over the weekend, although it could have went the other way, as the Sox could have gotten swept by the Fish. The Sox barely escaped Friday with a 3-2 victory. They then blew a 3-0 lead they built up in the third inning to lose 4-3 on Saturday. And then the Sox bullpen squandered a 4-1 lead to lose 7-4 yesterday. The ironic thing was, during most of the series, the Sox looked like the superior team. Well, there were certain points where they looked superior. But still, they looked really good, but still found ways to lose. And no one finds ways to lose better than your Chicago White Sox. So let's discuss just how bad it was that the Sox kept finding new ways to lose, along with the two bright spots in the second segment. But first, I need to address that it's time for Michael Kopech to be traded, even if it's for pennies on the dollar or just straight up designated for assignment. And finally, it's Monday, so let's do a Minor League Monday report. Today's episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked-on. All right, add closer to the list of the many things Michael Kopech has failed at in the big leagues. He couldn't cut it as a starter. He wasn't very good when he was demoted back to the bullpen at the end of the last season, and then he was permanently sent there during spring training. And the good thing was his velocity returned, and that made him a prime candidate to be a good closer. And the hope was he could be flipped at the deadline. Instead, Kopech is nothing more than a guy who could just throw the ball really, really hard. And that might win you some prizes at a carnival to impress the ladies, but it's not impressing anyone anymore. And I know a lot of you guys have been out on him for a while, but yesterday's performance has to be the final nail in Michael Kopech's career with the White Sox. They got to cut their losses. They got to stop trying to think that they can fix him. He is lost, ineffective, and he's usually only willing to throw one pitch, and that's his four-seamer. And when that has no movement or command, he's toast. And that is why it's time to let some other team think that they can fix him. You know, he's always been an ideal change of scenery candidate, but his last couple of outings have shown he needs to get up out of here right darn now. Kopech has blown 5 saves now in 13 opportunities, and it could have been 6 on Friday. He did have the bases loaded after he allowed a run to score, but thankfully Josh Bell was in a bad slump and grounded out to end of the game. And we'll get to Josh Bell again facing Michael Kopech in just a second. But yesterday's ninth had to be it for Kopech. He issued a walk to start the inning, then had 2 balks, walked another, gave up 2 hits, and allowed 4 runs. Tommy Pham almost bailed him out when it was Bell, of all people, who drove in the tying run. Bell hit a nice, he hit one hard out to left. Was going to the wall. Pham had a line on it, made a leap to try to catch it, but just the timing did not match up. He wasn't able to make the catch. Tying run scores. It's now 4-4. A couple hitters later, there's Jake Berger, who I got in a little A little disagreement with my Sox Summer, the guys from the 108. I said Jake Burger got his revenge. He pointed out on social media that, hey, he went to a better spot. And I agree. He's in a spot where he's actually appreciated by a franchise, but he did get a chance to stick it to the franchise that just sort of gave up on him. At least Kenny Williams did when he smashed that 3-run walk-off homer. Now, I still don't miss him, and I talked about it on Friday. But, man, it was sort of poetic how the Sox lost. The Sox keep trying to salvage Michael Kopech time and time again, but Kenny Williams gets a offer for a prospect with high upside, but an injury history, and I don't need Jake Burger. We got Yohan Moncada, who's never healthy. It was just poetic too, because as I talked about on Friday, Jake Burger's trade represented the dysfunction of the previous front office regime, where Kenny Williams just traded Burger out from under Rick Hahn. And there it was on display. The failure of the previous regime just coming full circle. Although, again, I'll die on that hill. I still don't miss Jake Burger, but it was nice to see him hit a walk-off homer. But think about it. The Sox are seeing Garrett Crochet make it to the All-Star team as he keeps betting on himself as a starter, and he's working hard. And I'm not saying that Michael Kopech's not working hard. It's just Kopech, who at one point gave the Sox 2 flamethrowers in the pen in 2021 with Crochet, he keeps declining more and more into a lost cause. Where Crochet, it's now, is he going to be a consistent top 5 Cy Young vote getter? And Kopech now sounds like a lost man. This is MLB White Sox beat reporter Scott Merkin. He had this on X, formerly Twitter, at Scott Merkin. Kopech on the final pitch. Quote, I mean, for the most part, almost to most hitters in the league, I'm trying to go top rail. I'm not sure if I got it there. I haven't looked at it. I don't really want to look at it. To tell you the truth, it's something I'll assess tomorrow. The 9th has been my role this year. In those situations, I have a job to do, and I haven't been doing it well. There's no easy way to say that. It's tough for me to say it, but it's the truth. I got work to do to get better, end quote. Well, the 9th should no longer be his role. He has a 20.25 ERA in 3 appearances this month. He also could not keep the game tied against the Guardians on July 2nd. And I hate wins and losses in this era. But think about this. He has 8 losses on the season, and only 3 of them have come from the blown saves. So that is 5 more ties or other leads he has failed to protect either in extras, the 9th, or high leverage situations. From here on out, this is the only time I want to see Michael Kopech on the White Sox. Because, I'm sure there's a team out there that still thinks he can be fixed. He should only be showcased now in low leverage situations so he can at least show that he can still get some outs. And then pray the Braves think that they can turn him into something much like they turned Ronaldo Lopez into the all-star starting pitcher that he is right now. Otherwise, if you can't move him, DFA him and let's move on. Well, there is still some bad to point out from the weekend series. Like the Marlins were, everybody thought that the Marlins were actually worse than the White Sox. Turns out not to be true. Andrew Benintendi was terrible in the field. Garrett Crochet, he had a rare ineffective game. And the Sox offense did not score enough runs. But there's also some good to discuss. So let's talk about it next on Locked On White Sox. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. And now you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. That's right, you can turn $10 into $1,000. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. The Sox are playing the Twins, and Byron Buxton always crushes the Sox pitching. Knowing that, a good entry to make is on the 1.5 total bases for Buxton. And a simple one is, do you think Luis Robert Jr. is going to hit a homer tonight? Since it is 0.5. Download the Prize Picks apps today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And here on Locked On Sox, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, it's year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. One of my first jobs, I worked for a bank in the collections department, and even I knew the IRS was not something to be messed around with. A bank can threaten foreclosure if you get behind your bills, but there are a lot of hoops that they sometimes have to jump through. Not the IRS, because they are usually the first in line to get their money. So when they say they will do something, they can do it. With over 14 years of experience and an A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and you need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon and be sure to mention Locked On White Sox at checkout and you'll receive $250 off their services. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox start a 3-game series with the Minnesota Twins tonight. Can the Sox finally beat their division rival? First pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. Just always ask that you make me your first listen. And if you can tell, I'm kind of battling a cold, so hope you bear with me. You know, it's been a rough weekend. And it's Monday. And the White Sox lost 2 of 3 to the Marlins. So yay. But I soldier through. Because that's one of the things about being a White Sox fan. You just keep going through. Just knowing that dealing with being a White Sox fan is going to help you get into heaven. At least that's what I think. All right. So the Sox, they're not better than the Marlins. And that was floating around Sox Twitter world after the Sox built up leads in all 3 games. And yes, the Sox have 2 studs in Luis Robert Jr. and Garrett Crochet. They got 2 promising rookie starting pitchers that I'll get to in a moment. Eric Fetty, he's been outstanding on the mound this year. However, he didn't pitch in that series. The Marlins have already waved the white flag on the season. But the Marlins have 3 outfielders who can catch everything. Sox have just LRJ, and that's it. And the Fish were out there robbing the Sox of extra base hits left and right. The Sox had Andrew Benintendi. He misplayed a fly ball on Saturday that it wasn't really out of the ordinary then to see him get pitched hit for the next inning. He made a dive for the ball a good 10 feet away from the baseball. Now, I might be exaggerating, but it was something that should be on a blooper reel. And at least Pedro pulled him. And the Marlins have comeback victories on the wall this season. The Sox keep finding painful ways to lose games, and they did that on Saturday when Michael Soroka could not hold a 3-2 lead. And like I discussed in the first segment, Michael Kopech could not hold a 4-3 lead. Although we really shouldn't be blaming Michael Kopech for everything. Tanner Banks, he gave up 2 runs in relief. That only that had Kopech then with that slim lead to work with in the 9th. But again, the Sox just keep finding painful ways to lose. And how is it happening? Well, The Sox have a bullpen that is shaky at best when it comes to protecting leads. The offense cannot score enough runs to bury a team, and the defense and the base running usually end up contributing to the losing too. And the Sox offense, they did not score a run in the sixth inning or later in the first two games, and none at all in the final three innings during the entire series. And you've got to put up runs against the Marlins because one of the things that they can do is they can score runs late in the game. Sox defense had 2 errors. Base running wasn't the issue this time because the Marlins just kept catching everything that was hit into the outfield. The Sox had to earn those hits. And I kept thinking, man, it would be nice to have an outfield like the Marlins have, at least offensively. One that has 3 players that can track down everything unless it's truly crushed to the gap. And the Marlins lineup did a good job at chasing Garrett Crochet. Now, he overpowered them. He was still his overpowering self, but the Marlins bats did a ton of fouling off pitches. I mean, a ton. 28 foul balls off of him. And they did a lot of that in the fourth inning where I think Crochet threw like 40 pitches. They got his pitch count up high, and he was gone early from the game on Saturday. And it was just one of those series where, for a brief moment, things looked great for the Sox, like Luis Robert Jr. having a strong game 1, but they didn't do much in game 2 or game 3. Andrew Vaughn was inconsistent, and Eloy Jimenez still can't hit the ball in the air. And yet we had people out there saying, well, the Sox are better than the Marlins. Okay, it's just like the Rockies. The Sox maybe have a couple of higher-end players, but the Sox do not play winning baseball. The Marlins got hurt and have waved the white flag. Lenyn Sosa continues to be a bright spot, though, as he had a hit in every game. Danny Mendick was good yesterday, including a home run. Otherwise, it was just not enough offense. But what was good was rookie starters Drew Thorpe and Jonathan Cannon. That is the hope of this team. Thorpe, 6 1/3 strong innings on Friday, 1 run, 3 hits, 2 walks, and 5 Ks. Cannon, 6 strong innings yesterday, 1 run, 4 walks, 3 hits, 3 Ks. And I'm impressed with how they're just out-getters. Because neither has like devastating velocity. They just have good stuff, and if they can command that stuff, they're gonna put the team in a position to win. And if the Sox trade Crochet, these two need to keep pitching well to show that there is still a promising future and that there's something worth watching this season. Well, speaking of hope, that's where the minor league, that's where it is for the White Sox. It's in the minor leagues, and it's Monday, so let's do a minor league Monday report next. Locked On White Sox. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. The over-under on today's game between the Sox and the Twins is 9.5, with the over getting plus 102. I think the Sox can finally beat the Twins. Hey, the money line is plus 152. Lenyn Sosa has been hitting the ball better, and he's at plus 290 to record 2 hits. And maybe an interesting parlay to play is Byron Buxton and Luis Robert Jr. to hit home runs. FanDuel is great for props, as you can put some action on the first inning result and even the correct score after the opening inning. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And the White Sox start a 3-game series with the Minnesota Twins. Can the Sox finally beat their division rival? First pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter, playing hurt. As you can tell, I have a cold. Hope you did have a good weekend. Mine, again, spent a lot of it in bed. I did play hurt. Took my daughter down to Chicago on Saturday, despite the cold. I promised her I'd take her to the American Girl store. And that place, man, that place is a money trap if you have a daughter. I mean, that place has everything I believe a little girl could dream of. And I always walk out with less money than I can even imagine because it's really hard for me to say no to my daughter. I'll admit I spoil her, but I think playing hurt has kept my cold going even worse. But I'm here for you. I'm sorry if I don't sound the greatest. Hopefully I'll get better. I've been taking Umka, drinking OJ, getting plenty of sleep. I mean, I slept all day yesterday, except for to wake up to watch the White Sox. So maybe that's why I'm still sick. I don't know. This cold has been a worthy. But anyways, enough about my struggles. MLB Pipeline updated their top 100 prospects after I recorded the July 1st episode. And the biggest takeaway is the folks there, they love Noah Schultz. The Sox top pitching prospect jumped 19 spots from 37th to 18th now. And they also love Edgar Caro as he shot up 18 spots from 92 to 74. The Sox top prospect, Colson Montgomery, he is ranked 16th. Drew Thorpe is 37th, but you got to wonder how long he'll be there. If he keeps staying up, he'll probably graduate from prospect status. And if you're worried about Colson Montgomery's slash line of 211, 328, 379, I highly recommend you check out last week's Sox Machine podcast episode. Josh Nelson spoke with Jim Callis of MLB Pipeline, and they had a great conversation on the biggest problem Montgomery's facing. And it's basically two things that Callis brought up. One, it's he thinks that Montgomery might have been rushed to AAA too soon. Because last year he was hurt for most of the year, so he didn't get a ton of at-bats. And also, he's struggling with velocity right now. And I don't know if that's really been brought up. I think a lot of people are just focusing on he's hitting under 220. But maybe the reason why he's hitting under 220 is he's facing pitchers that can actually throw hard. Now, again, AAA pitching and Major League pitching is still vastly different, but the AAA pitchers are usually now your depth pitchers in in case you have injuries, or they're your pitchers that you are parking lot because you don't have a spot for them. And some of them are going to have a lot more velocity than what you're going to face at AA or single A. And Cal's brought up an interesting point that maybe you got to keep Colson down for the rest of the season and even a few months in the next season so he can make those adjustments. And I honestly agree. I know it's not what we want to hear. Colson Montgomery is supposed to represent hope and helping turn around the Sox quickly, which is not going to happen. But if he can work on hitting the hard stuff, and that's already hard to do, but if he's got to work on that, why expose him to nothing but velocity in the big leagues? So I agree. The smarter idea is keep him down. Nicky Lopez can play short if you need him to once you trade Paul DeYoung. And you can bring back Nicky on the cheap or somebody else on the cheap as a bridge. And it's not like Nicky Lopez is killing this team. He just doesn't hit for power. But you could have him play short. And they had Lenine Sosa playing second yesterday. One of the reasons is to see, can he be even a bridge second baseman? Because I think the idea is you're going to put Jacob Gonzalez at second and Colson Montgomery at short, and then you're going to hope Brian Ramos can be more of what we saw when he first came up with the Sox and not inconsistent like we're seeing with him in the minors. And also, if you give him another year, the rest of the season and then maybe a few months, that will give him, that's not exactly rushing Colson Montgomery up. And when I watch Colson, I've turned on some nights games, or I'll check out the highlights from Future Sox. I definitely see a floor of a major leaguer, but a floor of like Paul DeYoung, a guy that's going to hit home runs at the big league level, but he's not going to be able to hit for average. And it's not like you need somebody to hit for average, but you'd like consistent slug. And maybe you'd like Colson to reach his ceiling, which is still a superstar. He still has a lot of superstar potential in that bat. It's just he's not being able to catch up to velocity right now. So maybe he does need a full year at AAA and a few more months. And I know it's not like what we want to hear, but if that's the issue, hitting velocity is very, very hard. So you got to work on, when you're going to start your bat, all that type of stuff. Let him make those work, let him work that out at AAA Charlotte. Although Montgomery is still highly thought of as he was selected to play in the Futures game during All-Star Week, Schultz was also selected. So they'll be there on Sunday. Caro, he got promoted to AAA last week, and he crushed a home run in his first game for the Knights. And that's a good sign to see, as while Corey Lee has shown he can play in the big leagues, he still might not have the upside to be an outstanding everyday catcher, where Caro, he's got that potential. He's got all-star potential written all over him. And the nice thing is, if you have Caro as your starting catcher and Corey Lee as your backup, that's cheap catching for a couple of seasons, and that is always a good thing. And also, if Corey Lee can show that he can get back to maybe hitting at 250, 260 with a little pop, that's a rotation at DH as well. Kai Busch, he could be the next young pitcher who gets a shot to show what he can do at the big leagues, as he was also promoted to AAA Charlotte. And the Sox are going to need some guys to eat innings once Eric Fetty and Chris Flexen are for sure traded. And then possibly they might need even another arm if they trade Garrett Crochet. Now, the Sox could go veteran with Michael Soroka and Mike Clevenger, but I'd rather see Kai Busch show what he can do after pitching very well at AA Birmingham. And he earned the promotion to AAA Charlotte. Why not continue this stretch of you bring the guys up, see what they can do. If they succeed, you keep them up. If they show some signs of struggles, you got Soroka there, you send them back down to work on some things. Samuel Zavala, he was one of the three prospects the Sox got in the Dylan Cease trade. He was off to a slow start at High A Winston-Salem, but his last 10 games, his slash line is 267, 500, 333. So maybe there's hope that he's starting to figure it out. George Wolcott, he is crushing the ball lately at Low A Kannapolis. 361, 483, 750 slash line with 6 home runs in his past 10 games, but he still needs to cut down on those strikeouts, as he K'd 29 times during those last 10 games. And I wonder if that's basically what's keeping him at Low A ball. And think about it, the kid reclassified to be eligible for the draft, so he should technically be a senior in high school. And he's already putting up ridiculous numbers at Low A. So it's just a matter of him now laying off pitches. And I'd like them to keep some standards. You don't want to be like, oh, okay, he's crushing the ball. Hey, you want to get to now on the next level, show me you can be a little bit more patient at the plate. Although that 483 on base percentage in the last 10 games is showing that he can be patient. It might be more of that. He's just crushing the ball. But also I think the age might be a good idea to just keep raking there. We'll take care of bringing you up next year. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Again, I apologize for not sounding the greatest. I've been just battling that cold. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully this cold will not be destroying me as it is right now. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to do a Throwback Tuesday, as I have some guests lined up for later this week to give you guys a draft preview, as this is one of the most important drafts in White Sox history. So I want to make sure you have the most up-to-date information on what the Sox will do with the number 5 pick and what they'll also do with their other top 100 picks. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at Locked On White Sox, or follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to leave comments about today's topics. Please do not talk about my voice. I'm sorry, I've been sick, but I'm here for you folks. But you can also leave topics about getting rid of Michael Kopech, the good and the bad against the Marlins, and the Minor League Monday Report. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dubb, or at Locked On Sox. You can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.